Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we're going to keep looking at the Conflux decks, and we're going to look at Grixis Shambling Army, which is, it's not winning any prizes for a catchy name, but yeah, it's blue, black, red, it's the Grixis Shard, so yeah, let's just start looking at it. So, kind of like all the other Conflux decks, this is basically just it's very similar to the Grixis deck from Shards of Alara, but it's kind of doing doing the strategy, doing the gimmick like a little bit better, just because the card pool's been expanded a bit more. So Unearth is still a thing, but there's just more cards with Unearth in the deck, which I think is a good thing because it shows off the Grix keyword, and just Unearth is a pretty good ability, I think. So. We're going to start off with a Brackwater Elemental, so 2 and a blue for a 4/4. Whenever it attacks or blocks, it gets sacrificed, and you can unearth it for 2 and a blue. So yeah, it's kind of like a blue ball lightning, I guess, it feels kind of weird, this being a blue creature. I think there is some history of a few blue creatures having this kind of thing, like usually I think old illusion creatures or stuff like that. But this okay, it's still a 4/4 for like 3 mana. You get one good swing out of it, I suppose. You can do it again. Yeah, I think it's okay. A single Dregscape Zombie, 1 and a black for a 2/1 with Unearth for a single black. Yep, this is fine. Kind of wish there'd been maybe 2 of these instead, just because it seems like it's the most basic Unearth creature. But yeah, it again does the job. You can swing for 2, and then you can do it again late game. Maybe if you've like ground your opponent down, you just need. It's always nice having it kind of like waiting in the graveyard, ready to unearth and get that final swing if your opponent's open or like you've really ground down all their other creatures. So yeah, I like Drake's 8 but I like all the unearth creatures really. So Grixis Slave Driver. So this is a card which I quite like because it plays around with Unearth. So 5 and a black for a 4/4. So quite expensive. Whenever it leaves play, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, and it can unearth for 3 and a black. So you can obviously attack with this, be quite aggressive with it because it's a good size. When it dies, it makes a zombie, and then you can unearth it, get a swing with the 4/4 again. It leaves play again because it gets sacrificed because of Unearth, and then you get another zombie token. So what's not to like? Weird, there's 2 of these, but I don't hate there's 2 of them. It's just weird to have kind of 2 copies of quite an expensive card. Single 5-field ogre. So we saw this in the last Grixis deck. 1 blue, black, red for a 4/2 with first strike, and it has Unearth. I got weirdly hung up about this card when I last looked at it because there's nothing blue about it. I don't understand why it's blue at all. I mean, it's fine. A 4/2 first strike is obviously a bit of a nightmare to deal with. Yeah, it's still fine, but yeah, I don't understand why it's blue. 2 Cathari Screechers, so this should have been in the previous Grixis deck. It's Windrake, basically, with Unearth, so it's fine. Having evasion and Unearth makes it, I think, really useful. Just I say, you can always unearth it, and it's more likely to get through the second time, I think. So yeah, Cathari Screecher is pretty good. I'm glad there's 2 of them in here. So one of the resin deck is Extractor Demon. So 4 and 2 black for a 5/5 flyer. Whenever another creature leaves play, you can have a player basically mill 2, which is good. A lot of your creatures obviously dying. Like obviously, a lot of your unearthed creatures will be leaving play twice, because once when they die, and then the other time when they get exiled as part of being unearthed. And I like that the mill effect can work for you, or as well, because you can mill your own stuff and get some of your unearthed creatures into your graveyard, or you can most of the time I think you're safe just to mill your opponent for 2. Doing a mill 2 on on every death trigger is and it is every creature. It's not just your creature, it is opponent's creatures as well. That'd be pretty mean. If you were playing these decks against each other, I say there are only 41 cards, this would really hurt. I think normally 60 cards, it would still hurt a little bit. It would still sting, but not as much as like if you were playing these two 41 card decks against each other. And it has Unearth as well. So yeah, which is good as well. Unearth a big 5/5 flying demon. Again, that might just be enough to close the game out. And that's all the unearthed creatures, but definitely happy there were more of them here than there were in the other Grixis deck. So a single Kederet Creeper, this was in the other Grixis deck. 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red for a 2/3 with Death Touch and Menace. So really hard to, like, a real pain to deal with, honestly, because you've got to block it with 2 things, but then it's going to kill 2 things. So yeah, really like Kederet Creeper. It's an absolute nightmare creature to deal with. Really embodies blue, black, red in my mind. We have a single Pestilent Cathari, 2 and a black for a 1/1 with flying and Death Touch, and it can give itself first strike to under 10. So obviously first strike and Death Touch is an amazing combination. So I don't mind the first strike, the ability being like quite expensive to activate. But yeah, I think this is good. I think it's okay actually at 3 mana, like 1/1 with flying and Death Touch. Maybe that's okay for 3. Maybe I think it's okay for a common. I think it's all right. And then 2 Sidraxis Alchemist, so 2 and a black for a 2/2. When it comes into play, if you control a blue permanent, you can bounce a non-land permanent. Yeah, really good. So you have a blue permanent. This is basically black Mana War. So it comes in just bounce. Well, it's better than Mana War actually because it can bounce any permanent rather than just a creature. Yeah, this is pretty good. I mean, you've got quite a few blue permanents in here, I think. So yeah, you got a pretty good chance of this going off, and yeah, I think it's pretty good. I would have loved if this had Unearth. That would be amazing. 2 zombie outlanders, just 1 blue, 1 black for a 2/2 pro green. Yep, fine, just nice cheap creature. Protection from colors like matters a lot in a block where there's a lot of multicolor, because he's going to be kind of immune to I think a surprising amount of stuff, honestly. So yeah, good card to include. I think all the Conflux decks have one of these outlanders in them. So the other rare is Blood Tyrant, which it feels like such a weird card. It feels a little bit ahead of its time, honestly. So, or it feels misplaced in this set, and well, I'll sort of explain. So it's 4, a blue, a black, and a red for 5/5 flying and trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player loses 1 life, and you get a +1/+1 counter on Blood Tyrant for every 1 life lost this way. That's fine as ability. If you're playing like a big, if you're playing a 4-player game, this obviously gets pretty silly because then it's getting +3/+3 every turn. But it's then this wording: whenever a player loses the game, put 5 +1/+1 counters on Blood Tyrant, which is like a huge ability again. But like this is a card that feels like specifically designed for Commander, like before Commander was like getting really popular. So yeah, I wonder if I kind of wonder because I think the original Commander precons were being designed or like designed about this time or like they were coming out soon, and I really wonder if this was like a design that was like maybe kicked back into a normal set, maybe just because like it's so specifically for like a multiplayer game. And it just feels like a very weird inclusion in like this kind of pre-constructed like this, because like imagine it's like 2 new players playing in like these are maybe their first decks, and one of them gets the this Grixis deck and sees their big foil rare like, oh cool, Blood Tyrant, that sounds really cool, and you see this last line of text like, whenever a player loses the game, get 5 +1/+1 counters. I imagine that would be a little bit confusing, honestly, because they'd be like, oh, why would he still get counters when the player loses? Like, what does that mean? Like, why would that matter? Yeah, I don't know. I suppose it's a way of gently nudging to like, oh, by the way, you can play games with more than 2 people. But yeah, it just feels like a weird rare to have in this deck, and kind of just a weird design overall. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I think it's a fine card. It's obviously just a really big, stompy creature that helps close out games, and as I say, it's absolute casual multiplayer gold, honestly. But yeah. A single Bonesaw. I really like Bonesaw. 0 mana artifacts are always gonna, get a bit of love, I think. Just because it's hard to shake off the shake off affinity, honestly. But yeah, 0 mana. It's equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and equip for 1. So this is kind of like a fixed Shuko, I think. If you remember from Kamigawa, there was Shuko, which is almost exactly this card, just with the equip and casting cost swapped. So having the equip cost actually cost something matters, like it actually fixes it, whereas Shuko is using a lot of combos because you can use the equip ability like an unlimited amount of times and get a bunch of like target triggers and stuff. So yeah, Bonesaw is like fixed Shuko, honestly. Have Elder Mastery, which is like this huge aura. So 3/1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. Basically turns a creature into mini Nicole Bolas. In charge of creatures, +3/+3, and has flying. And whenever it deals damage to a player, they discard 2 cards. So really huge bonus. Like it really turns anything you put it on into a threat. But it is like 6 mana, which is, I mean, that is expensive. And again, it's 3 different colors, so you got to jump through some hoops to do it. But yeah, this turns whenever you put it on into a really big threat. And yeah, just big old swingy card. Like they say, anything this goes on becomes a threat. Sigil Agony Warp. This is a pretty good card, I think. 1 blue, 1 black. Target creature gets -3, -0 turn 10. Target creature gets -0, -3 turn to 10. So you can do this. You can target the same creature twice to give it -3, -3 if you wanted to. But like I said in the previous Grixis video, because this was in that deck as well. The real potential for this is getting like a 2-for-1. Like you reduce one creature's power, so maybe it doesn't trade with one of yours, like when it's attacking or blocking. So your creature can kill it, and the -0, -3 just can straight up just kill another creature. So yeah, good card, I think. 2 shocks, just does 2 damage to target creature or player. Yep, we like shock. 2 absorb this, so 6 and a black, so super expensive. Target player loses 4 life, and you gain 4 life. So I mean that's a big swing. But 7 mana at sorcery speed is a lot to pay for this effect, honestly. So it has basic land cycling as well, which honestly this is like a cycle that like there's these really expensive common spells that have basic land cycling, and yeah, most of the time I think the basic land cycling is the best option for it. So you can pay 1 and a black, discard it, set your load for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into hand, and then shuffle. Yeah, but I suppose like late game if you have got 7 mana, sure. Yeah, it's still very expensive even for that effect, I think. Single Infest, yep, 1 and 2 black just to give everything -2/-2 turn. Yep, this is fine. You've got you don't care so much about this hitting your own creatures because you can unearth your creatures, so that's fine, I guess. And it's just good to have kind of like this this board sweep ability. And a single terror, which destroys a non-artifact, non-black creature, which can't be regenerated. Again, like I said in the previous Grixis video, this being in a multicolored set where one of the factions is just artifact creatures, and you've got other factions which are multicolored. So there's like quite a few like black creatures going around. I think this would usually sometimes have like it would be hard to find a target for it. Again, if you were playing these decks against one another. So yeah, probably could be replaced by something else, I think. And then we have the 2 Crumbling Necropolis, the Grixis Triland. We have 2 Terramorphic Expanse, and then a normal like 3/3/7 in land split here. So what could have been? I would have liked to. I was just going to say I would have liked to have seen Infectious Horror because I think Infectious Horror is a pretty great card. 3 and a black for a 2/2 zombie horror. Whenever it attacks, each opponent loses 2 life. Yep. So it's kind of interesting. It's actually cool with like Blood Tyrant and Infectious Horror, like starting to see cards pushed more towards like acknowledging multiplayer games, I suppose. Because I feel like if this had been done, in an older set, it would have just been like. Like a target opponent loses 2 life, whereas if it just affects everyone, then it's fine, I suppose. But yeah, I would have liked to see Infectious Horror, especially as a common. You could have found room for it. Hellspark Elemental. It's a bit of a crime that Hellspark Elemental's not here. So this is like a really good unearthed creature. So it's basically Spark Elemental. For 1 extra. So 3/1 trample haste, end of turn you have to sacrifice it, but you can unearth it, so you get 2 swings with it. Hellspark Elemental is like really great. Really wish there'd been at least 1 in this deck because it's a super good unearthed creature. Rotting Rats as well. 1 and a black for a 1/1. When it comes to play, each player discards a card. So because it can unearth, you can get this ability twice. It does affect you as well, but say it's kind of symmetrical, but it's not because you could just discard a creature with unearth, and then it's in the graveyard, which is kind of where you want it anyway. So that would have been fine, I think. And also Shambling Remains, just again another unearthed creature that could have gone in here. 1 black, 1 red. Or 1 colourless, 1 black, 1 red for a 4/3. Can't block, but it doesn't matter because it's just a big stompy fatty, and it has unearth, really cheap unearth actually. Always nice to see its unearth cost being less than its actual mana cost. But yeah, that could have gone in here as well. So overall, I think this is just basically a better version of the first Grixis deck. I think what you could do, and I said this I think with the Esper deck or the Bant deck, is if you had the Shards of Lara one and this one, if you just mash them together, you'd have like a really like good foundation. I think of sort of like a proper Grixis deck, like these, all the unearthed creatures and a lot of kind of like control spells, like a lot of removal. Yeah, I think it would have been off to a good start. But yeah, on its own, I think this is a better version than Grixis Undead. But that's just my thoughts after looking at the deck. What are your thoughts? If you're having any opinions or stories about this deck, stick a comment below. I'll give it a read. I always like reading people's comments. But I'll be back next time to look at another Conflux intro pack. But until then, thanks for watching and listening. Have a great day.